reading in Philippine history. Lord, please guide us dahil alam namin di namin magagawa at maiintindihan to pag di ka namin kasama. Ito po ang aming samot-dalangin sa pangalan ni Jesus naming tagapagligtas. Amen.
Amen. Sa ngala ng Ama, ng Anak, ng Espiritu Santo. Amen. So, good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending this video conference for the second primary source, which we are to examine today, which we are to analyze today. I also thank everyone because as I monitoring our learning management system course, I've been observing that many of you are online and many of you are reading reading all the materials posted in our LMS course. And that is a sign that you are helping yourself to become self-directed learners, or you're helping yourself for effective independent learning. So thank you for the efforts you've been doing to help yourself in this new normal in the educational landscape. Okay, so before we proceed to our discussion to the second primary source, maybe just have a recap or a synthesis of what had happened in the previous discussion. I'll be calling three students, okay, to share a sentence about what they have learned from last meeting's discussion. So we will be listening to the following people to share just a sentence of what they have learned from last meeting. So this is a random selection of the sharers before we start our discussion. We listen later to Laila Camille Tagari. Laila will share later. We also listen to Mark Vincent Arimbuyutan. Mark Vincent, Laila, and the last sharer we will have Sarah. Okay, Sarah Monino. Sarah Monino, Mark Vincent, and Laila will share just a sentence of what you have learned from last meeting's discussion. Maybe we can start with Laila. If your video is not working that well, if your internet connection is not working that well, you may type your sharing in the chat box of this Google Meet app.
Sure.
Okay, Laila, please.
What I have learned yesterday about the discussion about the first primary source, which is Antonio Pigafetta, First Voyage Around the World. It's just like what I have said yesterday, that without the colonization of the Spaniards, we won't be able to have a religion today, which is Christianity.
Okay, thank you, Laila, for that sharing. Thank you, Laila.
Thank you, sir.
That's a good sharing also, that without Spanish colonization, then we might not have been we might not have been, should I say, a Catholic or a Christian nation today. Okay, we listen to Mark Vincent.
Sir, natutunan ko po, sir, is yung mga iba't ibang culture ng mga Pilipino dati, sir, yung mga katangian nila, which na yung mga captain nila doon, sir, is yung buhok nila mahaba, sir, hanggang sa balikat, sir. Then yung mga tsaka sir, yung labanan nila, sir, dapat siya yung mismong nangunguna, sir, ganun. Marami siyang experience sa labanan, sir. Yun lang, sir.
Okay, thank you, Vincent. That's also good sharing. Vincent is telling us that it's through the document of Pigafetta, the Chronicle of Pigafetta, that we were able to have a clear picture, a vivid picture of our pre-colonial ancestors, of the pre-colonial Filipinos prior to the coming of Spain. Thank you, Mark Vincent. And the last sharer we have, who's the last one again? I forgot his name. The last one is Sarah. Sarah, please. Sarah, you may make use of the chat box if your internet connection is intermittent or is slow. Sarah, please. Sarah. Okay, so Sarah is not responding. Maybe listen to, instead of Sarah then, maybe listen to Marjorie. Marjorie, please.
Sir, wait lang po.
Yes, Marjorie.
Sir, ano yun, sir?
Please share a sentence of what you have learned from our previous discussion.
About dun sa
About sa
about dun sa Spaniards ba, sir? Dun sa pag-colonize nila.
Then, so what have you learned about their colonization in the Philippines?
Sir?
What have you learned about the colonization of Spain to the Philippines?
Kung hindi dahil sa pag-colonize nila, sir, is wala tayong sarili.
Marjorie, you may, because your voice is quite soft and I can't listen to it clearly. You may make use of the chat box to encode your answer or to encode your sharing. Okay, then you'll read it later. Okay, so we will now proceed to the next primary source. If the first primary source, if Pigafetta's Chronicle described how we are as pre-colonial Philippines, or described the pre-colonial Filipinos. Okay, this document, the second document that we will be analyzing now, is about a description of a priest or a friar about the early culture or the pre-colonial culture of the Tagalogs. Okay, please take note that the people, the pre-colonial Filipinos in being described in Pigafetta's Chronicle are those who are from the Visayas region. Okay? Those who are from the Visayas region, because it was very clear in the Chronicle that the places they have visited, that the places these members of the voyage visited are places in Visayas region, particularly that of the eastern and central Visayas. Eastern, we are referring to Samar, Leyte, and others. Central, we are referring to Cebu, Bohol, and other islands in the said region of the Philippines. In the second document that we will be examining, it is a description of the pre-colonial, pre is before the colonial period, the pre-colonial, the culture of the pre-colonial Tagalog. And Tagalog, okay, the Tagalogs is a tribe in southern part of Luzon. Okay? Ano tong mga Tagalog region na ito sa Pilipinas? Ito ay kinabibilangan ng Region 3, maybe sa Tagalog region, Region 3, NCR, Region 4A, and Region 4B. These are Tagalog regions in the Philippines. So the document that we will be examining, okay, would be about their pre-colonial culture. Okay? So allow me to share this slide. So, the next document is about the next primary source is entitled Customs of the Tagalogs. Okay? But this article, this book is written in Spanish. Okay, written in Spanish. The original form of this is in Spanish, and has just been translated into English for it to be made understood by the readers or by those who are interested in understanding culture, in understanding Tagalog culture. In Spanish, it is entitled as Relación de las Costumbres de los Tagalogs. Okay? Relación de las Costumbres de los Tagalogs. In Spanish, C-I-O-N or C is pronounced as C. That's why it is read as Relación de las Costumbres de los Tagalogs. So please not be confused because some Spanish written books made use of Tagalog instead of Tagalog. But these terms can interchangeably used, okay, to refer to the Tagalogs of Luzon or southern Luzon in the Philippines. So the author of this book or the author of this text is a friar, okay, a Franciscan friar, okay, named Juan de Plasencia. Okay, so it was Juan de Plasencia who has written, should I say, this book or this account as regards pre-colonial culture of the Tagalog. So this is the picture of Fray Juan de Plasencia. Now, we have to understand first who is Fray Juan de Plasencia, okay, or tinatawag din siyang Juan de Porto Carrero, okay, Juan de Porto Carrero. He grew up during the Golden Age or Siglo de Oro of Spain. Meaning to say, if it's the Golden Age, then that would be, if it's an age, if it isn't a Golden Age, then that would mean that there is advancement, there is economic boost, there is development in a certain area or in the world when we say Golden Age. It is an age where there are inventions, there are discoveries, there are economic development or economic progress, okay, and that time, Spain is experiencing that golden age, that economic boost, that advancement, that age of discovery, okay, while Juan de Plasencia, okay, was growing. During this period, there was an upsurge of men, okay, it was during this Siglo de Oro of Spain that there was an upsurge of men entering religious life with the intention of suiting up for missionary work in newly discovered territories. And it's because of the age of colonialism, the age of exploration also, that has brought the golden age of Spain, because this was the time that Spain has been looking, has been colonizing places, has been colonizing, discovering new territories for them to get gold, for them to get that glory that they've been planning to do for their country. And it was because of the new discoveries. It was because of the new territories that need to be discovered, new territories that would sustain Spain as a community, that motivated some men, okay, to enter religious life and to do missionary work. Because it's only through doing missionary work, it's only through entering the religious life that these men will be given that opportunity to travel or to be part of the expedition, to be part of a voyage looking or discovering for new lands. Okay? So naging interesado ang mga kalalakihan na pumasok sa buhay religyoso nang sa ganon ay makatungtong sila o makasama sila sa isang pangkat na tumitingin o nagdidiskubra ng mga bagong territory, ng mga bagong lupain for colonization and for gold or for gold and for resources. Please take note that Juan de Plasencia is a member of the first batch of the Franciscan missionaries who arrived in the Philippines on July 15, 1570. First batch siya. May I request everyone to please unmute your mic. Okay? First batch siya ng mga Franciscans na pumunta sa Pilipinas. That's why if you observe in the write-up of or in the novels of Jose Rizal, you have observed that there are three groups of missionaries being mentioned there. We have the Franciscans, we have the Dominicans, and the Augustinians. So these are the first three religious groups who arrived in the Philippines during the Spanish colonization of the said country, of our country. He and Fray Diego de Oropresa were assigned to do mission work in southern Tagalog area. Okay, so it was him and that of Father Oropresa, who was assigned by their superior to do mission work in the southern Tagalog area. Okay, when we say southern Tagalog area, we are referring to Region 4. Okay, yung Central Tagalog po kasi we are referring to Region 3. Okay, Southern Tagalog is Region 4, and that is 4A and 4B. Now, so this is the areas. Okay, these are the areas. Should I say? These are the areas being assigned to Fray Oropresa and Fray de Plasencia to do mission work. Okay, he helped in the foundation and organization of numerous towns in Quezon, Laguna, Rizal, and Bulacan. Prior to the reorganization of the Philippines into different regions, Bulacan, who is now part of Region 3, was once part of Region 4 or Southern Tagalog region. So ito yung mga probinsya, okay, na kung saan ay tumulong itong si Plasencia para mabuo o para mabuo ang nasabing mga towns sa nasabing probinsya. Quezon, Laguna, Rizal, and Bulacan. So there's Rizal, this is Quezon, this is Laguna, and that is Bulacan. Okay? Other than that, his continuous interaction with the people he converted to Christianity enabled him to write a book entitled, okay, so it was because of his interaction, because when you are a missionary, you really have to interact with people in your community. And it was because of his interaction with people, it was because of his socialization with people of these provinces in the Philippines, of these southern Tagalog provinces, that made, okay, Juan de Plasencia write a book entitled Relación de las Costumbres de los Tagalos, or what we are studying now, the customs of the Tagalogs, and this was written in 1589. The said book vividly describes the political, okay, social, economic, and cultural practices of the Filipinos before they were Christianized. So it's about the pre-colonial Tagalogs. It's about the pre-colonial southern Tagalogs. Okay? His biggest challenge at that time was how to make the articles of faith comprehensible to people who have never heard of Christ nor the Catholic Church. I think this has always been a challenge to any missionary, that when they are assigned to different places, they have to understand, they have to learn the language or the dialect of that community, so for them to make their articles, so for them to make their mission, their words be comprehensible or understandable by the people of the said community. This has always been a challenge. You know, when I was in Myanmar, it has been a challenge for me also to learn though I'm not a missionary, but of course I have to be immersed in the community, so for me to know how to teach these people, it was really difficult to learn their language. And I think that's the very first thing that one has to learn when he or she is being immersed into a new community, into a foreign community. And that has been a challenge, of course, to Plasencia, on how he would make his articles of faith be understandable to people of the southern Tagalog area. It was in 1593 that Juan de Plasencia published the book Doctrina Cristiana en Lengua Española y Tagala, which is the first printed book in the Philippines. So that's the first printed book in the Philippines, and it was de Plasencia who has written the said book. It is an article of faith. Okay, it's about Catholicism. It's about Christ. Okay, it's about Christ speaking to the people of the Southern Tagalog, and that's the first printed book in the Philippines. Again, the name is Doctrina Cristiana en Lengua Española y Tagala. Okay, Now, he used it, the said document, the Doctrina Christiana, was used as reading material for those Filipinos who wanted to deepen their faith in the newly accepted religion. Okay, that's why no, preschooling in the Philippines, okay, preschooling in the Philippines during the Spanish times, during the Spanish colonial rule, okay, is a job done by churches. Okay, so mga pari ang nagtuturo, okay, sa mga maliliit na bata para turuan sila kung paano gamitin, kung paano magsalita ng Espanyol. After several years of converting the natives and teaching catechism, the Franciscan order honored him with the title Venerable. When you're given a title of Venerable, that is, I think, next to blessedness. Then blessedness is next to canonization, and that is being saved. Okay? When you are called Venerable, meaning to say, as a priest, meaning to say, you have contributed so many things in the community, meaning to say you have been an effective missionary, okay, you've been a good missionary for the said community, and you have converted people, okay, to accept the Catholic faith. So that was the reason why De Plasencia was honored by the Franciscan order as Venerable. And Plasencia died in Liliw, Laguna in 1590. So it was in 1590 that De Plasencia died. Okay? But the good thing about this is, thank you to De Plasencia, because it was through him that we are now learning, okay, the pre-colonial culture of the Tagalogs. And considering that we have to understand, as Filipinos, we have to understand the culture of the Tagalogs, especially that the Tagalog dialect, okay, the Tagalog dialect is the reference, okay, is the reference of the national language that we have now, which is Filipino. Okay, so napakahalaga na kailangan nating aralin ang kulturang Tagalog nang sa ganun ay lalo rin nating bigyang halaga ang lengguwahe, ang pambansang wika natin na ang naging basehan ay ang salita o dialektong Tagalog. Now we proceed to the historical context of this document. Bakit itong si Plasencia ang nakapagsulat ng nasabing dokumento tungkol sa Southern Tagalog, tungkol sa kultura ng mga taga-Southern Tagalog? During the first century of Spanish rule, colonial officials had the hard time running local politics because that's the first time. That's the first century, okay? First 100 years of Spain in the Philippines. It was really a challenge for them on how to run local politics because of limited number of Spaniards, okay, who wanted to live outside Intramuros. That time, Intramuros, this is Intramuros in the Spanish times, Intramuros is the capital city of the Philippines. And Spaniards, okay, would not like to live outside Intramuros. Well, I understand them if in case that they don't want to live outside Intramuros, because Intramuros is quite an advanced town, advanced city, unlike other parts of the Philippines. That's why Spaniards, okay, would just like to live inside Intramuros and do not like the idea of moving outside Intramuros to run local politics. So it's really a challenge to the Spanish government. And it was because of this challenge that brought or that forced the Spanish government to allow Filipinos to hold the position of Gobernador Silio. Okay? When we say Gobernador Silio or new governors, okay, this ang katumbas nito sa sa strukturang pampolitika ng Pilipinas ngayon. Ang katumbas nito ay mga mayor. Okay, ang katumbas nito, mayor ng mga towns. Okay, ang katumbas ng Gobernador Silio. So they allow, okay, Filipinos to be mayors of their respective towns. At tinatawag silang Gobernador Silio. Okay? Kasi nga, Governor General ang tawag dun sa parang pinaka-presidente natin. Okay, nung panahon na yon. Tapos, yung mga little governors sa different towns ay tinatawag ng Gobernador Silio. Ang katumbas si Governor General sa ngayon ay presidente, ang katumbas si Gobernador Silio ngayon ay governor. Okay? So kumbaga, kung nasa Spanish times pa rin tayo, itong si Mamba sa Cagayan, ay doon natin sa ibang lugar, itong si Mamba sa Cagayan ay tinatawag nating Gobernador Silio. Now, ito ang eksena ng isang gobernador silyo. Okay? Yan siya. Ganyan ang tsura nila, mga local Filipinos. To ensure that they would remain loyal to the crown because they are Filipinos, they are natives, and to ensure that this gobernador Silios will remain loyal to the Spanish crown, to the Spanish government, they instructed the friars instead, assigning the parishes to supervise and monitor the activities of the gobernador Silio. So it's now because there are friars, there are priests assigned, there are missionaries assigned in each town of the Philippines during Spanish colonization, and to maintain and to make sure that these gobernador Silios, these native Filipinos who are running the government, would be loyal to the Spanish crown. They requested these friars, these priests, okay, to supervise and check, okay, these gobernador Silios. Ang tawag naman sa mga kapitan noon, ang mga kapitan ng mga barangay ay mga local Filipinos din, mga native din, mga native Filipinos. Ang tawag sa kanilang panahon na yan sa Spain ay cabeza de barangay. Cabeza ang pag-pronounce ng iba, pero dahil ang Z ay pronouncing T in Spanish, it's cabeza de barangay. Okay? So ito yung mga kapitan natin ngayon. Hence, the friars, because of this task given to the friars of supervising and monitoring the gobernador Silios, the friars ended up performing the administrative duties that the colonial officials should have been doing in the local level. So it should be the colonial officials doing this. But because they assigned the friars doing it for them, doing it for the colonial officials, kaya mas naging administrative ang trabaho ng mga fraile, ng mga pari. Okay? During that time po kasi there's no such thing as separation of the state and the church. Because remember that there's a great influence of the Roman Catholic Church, okay, during that time in Spain. That's why there's no separation between the church and the government during that time. Hence, dahil binigay sa friars ang trabaho to monitor the gobernador Silio, nagkukulang na sila ng time to convert the people into Christianity or even to address the spiritual needs of the community. Mas naging focus na nila ang maging politicians, okay, sa mukha ng pagiging praile. Okay, so this was the context during that time. Okay, this is an example of a priest, okay, during the Spanish times. They friars supervise the election of the local executives, help in the collection of taxes, imagine they are doing this also, directly involved in educating the youth, and perform other civic duties. So ito yung mga trabaho ng mga friars assigned in different towns already. So parang naging administratibo, naging politika ang dating ng mga friars during those times. As years went by, the friars ended up the most knowledgeable, influential figure in the pueblo. Pueblo is town. Ang equivalent niya is town. So, it's because of these duties being performed by the friars that made them so popular in the pueblo, that made them so popular in the town. At naging ma-influensya at naging madulong itong mga paring ito. And because of this, kaya lalong naging abuso ang mga praile noong mga panahon na yan. And hindi na ito bago sa atin. Kasi nakita natin, nabasa natin sa nobela ni Rizal na naging abuso o naging hindi maganda ang pagiging pari ng mga ibang praile, ng mga ibang Spanish friars sa Pilipinas mga kapanahonang iyon, kasi nga medyo tinitingala sila sa nasabing lugar o sa nasabing mission work nila. Some duties of the friars assigned in mission territories are the following. So ito mga iba pang mga duties nila, to inform periodically their superiors of what was going on in their respective assignments. Okay, so yan ang ginagawa nila. Pangalawa, they also report the number of natives they converted, the people's way of life, their socioeconomic situation, and the problems they encountered. And they submit short letters, while others who were keen observers and gifted writers wrote long dispatches or long narratives about the mission work or the mission towns that they were assigned to. Okay? So, kumbaga, kung titignan natin ang trabaho ng mga prayer, parang DSWD ang trabaho nila, no? Parang trabaho ng mga taga-social welfare, okay, agency. Why? Because they do surveying. Okay, they report the conditions, even the socio-economic situation of the people, okay, of the what they have encountered in their community. So parang social welfare practitioners ang mga private. Okay? On top of the regular reports, they also they also share their personal observations and experiences in the community assigned to them. Plasencia's Relación de las Costumbres de los Tagalogs, or the customs of the Tagalogs, is an example of this kind of work where he has narrated all the things he observed about the southern Tagalogs. Okay? Hence, we proceed now to the book or to the account of Juan de Plasencia, the customs of the Tagalogs. This book contains numerous information that historians could use in the reconstruction of the political and socio-cultural history of the Tagalog region. As I have said, thank you to Plasencia for letting us enjoy this primary source now, and it's because of this primary source that we are now learning something about pre-colonial Tagalog. His work is a primary source because he personally witnessed the events and observations that he discussed in his account. So these are all personal accounts, personal observations, personal experiences of Plasencia himself about the Tagalog region. Now, please take note that there are other accounts, okay? There are also other accounts describing about Filipinos, describing about pre-colonial Filipinos. And this includes that of Miguel de Luarca, who wrote the book Relación de las Islas Filipinas, who described the way of life of Filipinos living in Western Visayas area. Okay, so siya naman yung nasa sa Western Visayas. Siya naman, ito Western Visayas, tutukoy natin dito ay yung sa may Negros, okay? That is Western Visayas, okay? Negros Occidental, Negros Oriental, what else? Ang famous cities dyan in Dumaguete, these are all part of the Western Visayas. So, if we would like to learn about the Western Visayas, pre-colonial Western Visayas, we have to read the book of Miguel de Luarca, Relación de las Islas Filipinas. And we also have Antonio de Morga, Sucesos de las Islas Filipinas, which gives a lot of information about the state of the Philippines at the latter part of the 16th century. Latter part, ibig sabihin ano na to? Ibig sabihin panahon na ng Spanish colonial rule. Now, other Spanish missionaries also continued doing historiographical tradition. Historiographical tradition is about writing about the history of a community, okay, initiated by Luarca and Plasencia. And these are the following books. That of Father Pedro Chirino, okay, Jesuit ito, isang Jesuita. Father Pedro, isa rin sa unang apat na religious group na pumunta sa Pilipinas. Sinulat niya yung Relación de las Islas Filipinas. Father Juan Delgado, Jesuit, okay, SJ. Sinulat din niya Historia General. Father Francisco Colin, SJ. Sinulat niya ang Labor Evangelica. Okay, it's about labor things in the Philippines, work, okay, and others. Okay, later on we will try to understand the book of, we will also try to understand the write-up of Collins, Father Collins, as regards his claim that, the first mass in the Philippines is not actually in Limasawa, but rather in Mazao, which is part of Butuan City in Mindanao. Then the fourth one is Francisco Ignacio Alcina, Jesuit, who wrote the book Historia Natural del Sitio, Fertilidad y Calidad de las Islas and Indios de Visayas. Okay? Historia Natural del Sitio, Fertilidad y Calidad de las Islas and Indios de Visayas. So that was the book written by Francisco Ignacio Alcina. And for ito is we also have Father Joaquin Martinez de Zuniga, who wrote Historia. So these are books. And these are what we call as Friar accounts. Many of what we know now about Philippine history during the first century of the Spanish period were derived from the accounts of the Spanish friars. Thank you to this priest. Again, thank you to this priest, thank you to this missionary, because they have written, or because they were able to produce books, okay, or narratives about our culture. Now we proceed to the content analysis. The work of Plasencia then is considered by many historians as an example of a friar account. Friar is a priest account. This kind of writing is one of the most common contemporaneous accounts during the early part of the Spanish period. Okay? The original text of Plasencia's Customs of the Tagalogs is currently kept in Archivo de General de Indias in Seville, Spain. Okay, so this is the museum. This is the Archivo General de las Indias, where this original account of Plasencia has been kept. There is also a duplicate copy of it in the Archivo Franciscano Ibero Oriental, and that is in Madrid, Spain. So those who would like to look at the original form of Plasencia's account, or you may visit Spain, Seville, Spain, and Madrid, Spain to look for this document. Okay? In the Philippines, an English version of it appeared in the volume 7, in the 7th volume of the Blair and Robertson collection. Please take note that Blair and Robertson are early authors describing about Philippines during the American period. Another English translation of it was published as part of the volume of Pre-Hispanic Philippines of the Filipiniana Book Guild series, and what will be represented is from this version. So what we are to discuss now is a version from the Filipiniana Book Guild series. Now we proceed to the content presentation and analysis of the important historical information found in the document. But before we proceed to that, okay, you might have some questions about the early part of our discussion. Okay, any question about the early part of our discussion about the contextual analysis, and the background of the author? Any question? If there are no questions, may we now continue our discussion. We now proceed then to the content analysis of the said primary source. Okay. Now, these are the things mentioned by Plasencia in his book. Okay, he described the early community of the Tagalogs. And they said there's barangay, okay, a community is called barangay. Okay, barangay is a tribal gathering ruled by chief. So, early Tagalog region do have a chief. Okay, ito yung kapitan natin, tinatawag ngayon. It is called a barangay because they associate themselves with the Malay, who are one of the first people to arrive in the Philippines through a boat in which they call barangay. Okay, dyan nag-evolve yung pangalan natin ngayon na sa isang boat na tinatawag nating balangay. Okay, in Tawel, we call it barangay. Okay, or balangay in Filipino, boat. Okay, so dyan nagsimula yung term na iyan. And a balangay consists of around 30 to 100 houses. Barangays also have some sort of diplomacy. When you say diplomacy, they have processes, they also have procedures, they also have procedures on doing things. Okay? All barangay and diplomacy is meaning to say there's also a dialogue among these barangays. Okay, nag-usap-usap din sila for peace making pact, okay, and others. All barangays were equal in terms of status. Okay, so pantay-pantay ang lahat ng barangay sa early Tagalog communities. So that's how they describe it. Now, for government, The datu is the chief of the village. He governed the people as captain, even in wars. He was obeyed and was revered, respected, something referred. Any subject who committed any offense against him or spoke to his wives and children were severely punished. So that time, bawal kausapin ang mga asawa at mga anak ng nasabing datu. Okay, this is a typical phase of a datu in the early Tagalog community, in the pre-colonial Tagalog region. Okay? So, mabigyan ng parusa ang sinumang kumausap, okay, sa mga asawa. Okay, so meaning to say, early Tagalogs are polygamous for male. Okay, they're polygamous. Ibig sabihin, pwede sa magkaroon ng maraming asawa. Now, for the social hierarchy, okay, for the social hierarchy of the community, okay, ito, for the social hierarchy, okay, the community is divided into three. There are those who are called maharlika. Okay, maharlikas are born free. Ito yung malayang mga tao sa komunidad. There is what we call as aliping na mamahay. An aliping na mamahay serves their masters and can have his or her own property. Basta pwede siya magkaroon ng sariling ari-arian, okay? Sariling kayamanan ang mga aliping na mamahay. But they serve their masters. We also have the aliping sa gigilir, okay? Considered as a slave who serves his or her master, but these slaves can be sold off. Pwedeng ibenta, pwedeng i-barter, pwedeng i-trade. Okay? Please not be confused. Other books made mention of aliping sa gigilir, but in the book of Plasencia, it is called aliping sa gigilir. Okay? Sa gigilir. Ang word na R kasi ay nag-evolve na lang siya as language, as dialect is progressing. Okay? So, yun yung mga tatlong uri ng tao. Maharlika, aliping na mamahay, aliping sa gigilir. Sa atin ngayon, wala na tayong slaves, no? Dapat lang nawala, no? Because every life, okay? Every life has to enjoy freedom. Okay? Every life has to have that kind of freedom. Okay? So dapat bawat buhay ay may bawat tao ay may karapatang mabuhay ng malaya. Buti na lang, no? Nagbago ang komunidad. Wala na tayong tinatawag na slave. Okay. Now, for specific descriptions of this hierarchy, the maharlika are what we call as the nobles, people who are born free. They do not need to pay their taxes. Must accompany the datos in war. O yun lang ang mahirap. The maharlikas have to be with the datos, okay, for war or during war. Medyo mahirap to. Di nung panahon ngayon, di mas maganda na lang maging alipin na mamahay, no? Okay, kaysa sasama ako sa mga labanan. Okay? Yun nga lang, hindi naman ako magbayad ng tax ko kung maharlika ako at malaya ako. Yun ang maganda. Okay, sa bagay, mas maganda maging malaya. Okay? Kaysa sa naman maging alipin. Yun nga lang, kapag maharlika ka, yun nga nakakatakot. During that time, there are plenty of battles, there are plenty of wars. Okay, mahirap na sumama sa datu pagdating sa digmaan. Okay, for aliping na mamahay, they have their own properties but has to serve their own masters. Children belonging to this case inherit the status of their parents. So kung pag pinanganak ka na aliping na mamahay, pag ang mga magulang mo ay aliping na mamahay o commoners, automatic ikaw din ay magiging commoner. Cannot be treated as a slave nor can be sold off. Hindi mo pwedeng ibenta, hindi mo pwedeng i-barter, at hindi mo pwedeng silang itratong alipin. Okay? Now, for aliping sa gigilir, slaves, they serve their master in their houses and lands. They can be sold off. The master can reward his or his slaves by giving them a portion of the harvest so that the slaves will be faithful to him or her. So, dyan sa pamaraan na yan, nabibigyan ng reward ang mga aliping sa gigilir. Now, for maharlika, another description is this: he would keep their status for a lifetime. Okay, so their status as nobles could be kept for a lifetime. But this will be taken away from them if he or if a maharlika, he or she marries a slave. O pag nag-asawa ka ng isang alipin, okay, automatic na, okay, magiging alipin ka. In this case, the kids would be divided and they would inherit the status of their mother or father. So, kumbaga, for example, si Lester ay isang maharlika. Okay? Ngayon si Lester, maging maharlika, tapos mag-aasawa siya ng isang alipin sa gigilir, okay, automatic si Lester ay magiging alipin sa gigilir. Okay? Tapos yung mga anak nila, okay, may inherit yung status ng kanilang parents. Okay, so kawawa naman yung pag nag-asawa si maharlika ng isang slave, kawawa ng mga anak nila, maharlika yung tatay nila, halimbawa, yung nanay nila, tapos biglang nag-asawa ng slave, automatic magiging slave din yung mga anak. Okay? Kaya nga noon, nag-aasawahan din lang din ang mga miyembro ng mga nobles. Okay? Actually, it was because of them kasi para hindi malipat yung yaman nila, para hindi sila bababa ng kanilang ranggo sa komunidad. Okay, kaya noon, nag-aasawahan din yung mga nobles kahit na magkaka-relative sila. Diyan din nabuo yung mga iba't ibang sakit. Okay, because of the intermarriages within the noble group. Okay, kahit magkakamag-anak sila, nag-aasawahan sila at yung mga anak nila, nagkakaroon ng mga complexities, nagkakaroon ng mga disorders because of this near bloodline marriages. Okay, bloodline related marriages. Okay? Example ng sakit na nabuo because of this is the hemophilia. You know what hemophiliac is? Hemophiliac is? Ito yung sakit sa dugo na hindi ka agad nagka-clutch yung pag nagsuwatan ka, hindi ka agad nagka-clutch yung dugo mo, kaya tuloy-tuloy ang buhos ng dugo, tuloy-tuloy yung paglabas ng dugo sa katawan mo pag nasugatan ka. Iyan ay isang halimbawa ng sakit na nabuo dahil sa pag-aasawa ng magkakamag-anak doon sa maharlika o doon sa noble group. Now, for property, the land area was divided among the whole barangay, especially the irrigated portion. Okay, so it's for the whole barangay. Okay, no one from a different barangay could cultivate land unless they inherit or buy the land. Okay, so kapag taga-ibang barangay ka, hindi mo pwedeng cultivate yung lupa ng nasabing ibang barangay. Maliban kung namana mo ito sa kamag-anak mo doon sa barangay na iyon o di kaya pinili mo yung nasabing lupain. The lands of the mountain ridges, though, are not divided but owned by the barangay as a whole. Okay, so hindi siya nare-divide sa mga tao, yun sa mountain ridges. Okay, kung hindi, ito yung mga mountain slopes, okay, mountain areas. Okay, kung hindi, pag may-ari ito ng buong barangay, so basically kahit sino pwede pumunta doon, kahit sino pwedeng pwedeng kumuha ng mga pananim, pwedeng kumuha ng mga pagkain o mga hayop na pwedeng kainin o katayin. At the time of the rice harvest, any individual, regardless of their barangay, that starts to clear any land area may sow in it. So, ibig sabihin, tama yung sabi nila noong panahon, na kapag masuka lang area na ito, tapos ginawa mo, clear mo siya, okay, pwede mo siyang gamitin para pagtamnan ng inyong mga gulay-gulay, pagtamnan ng inyong mga halaman, pagtamnan ng palay and others. Okay? Fisheries of chiefs had established limits and sections of the rivers for markets. Okay, so merong separate na fishing area ang mga chiefs o yung mga datos. Unless you were a member of the chief's barangay, you had to pay for the privilege of fishing or selling in the chief's fisheries. Okay, so pag hindi ka miyembro ng barangay kung saan namumuno yung nasabing kapitan, saan namumuno yung sabing dato, kaya mo magbayad para bigyan ka ng pagkakataon, para bigyan ka ng permiso na mangisda dun sa nasabing fisheries. Pero yung mga miyembro ng barangay ng nasabing dato ay pwede lang mangisda doon kahit na walang ng libre, kahit walang bayad doon sa nasabing dato. Now, we proceed to marriage customs as described by Plasencia. In the case of a divorce, sabi niya, if the wife would leave her husband for the sake of marrying another man, all her belongings plus a certain amount would be given to her former husband. Okay? So, halimbawa, makipaghiwalay yung babae dun sa kanyang asawa para makapangasawa ng panibagong lalaki, lahat ng pagmamay-ari ng babae kasama ng amount o halaga ng pera ay maibibigay dun sa dati niyang asawa. But if the wife chooses to leave and do not have any plan to marry, so lahat ng dowry, yung sabi natin dowry, ito yung binabayad ng lalaki sa babae kapag aasawahin niya ito. Okay? So kapag si babae, hiwalay na ng asawa pero hindi walang plano mag-asawa muli, okay? Then, all her dowry will be returned to her. So yung dowry na binigay nung lalaki sa kanya noong nag-asawa sila ay mapupunta lang din sa kanya. Pero kapag maghihiwalay sila at mag-asawa ng ibang babae, yung dowry niya, tinatawag yung amount ito, yung dowry na ito, kasama ng mga pagmamay-ari niya, ay ibibigay sa dati niyang asawa. Okay? So, that's marriage custom. In case of an adoption, halimbawa, meron kayong aampunin. The children na aampunin would receive double the value of how much they were both to be adopted. So, pumili ka ng anak mo. Okay, so bibili mo ng anak mo, pero yung nabili mo na anak ay dapat mabigyan ng doble dun sa binayad mo, dun sa pinagbilhan mo, dun sa nasabing adopted child or adopted children. Okay? Investigations and sentences for the accused shall be presented and read in front of the judge. Sorry, this is not supposed to be part of the marriage custom. So kapag may mga crimes, okay, yung investigation at sentences to be given to the accused, okay, will be presented and read in front of the tribe. So buong komunidad yan ang makikinig dun sa investigasyon, buong komunidad ang makikinig sa kung anong parusa na ibibigay dun sa kriminal, dun sa nakagawa ng kasalanan sa komunidad. Okay? Now we proceed to worship and belief as presented by Plasencia. According to Plasencia, there were no temples or sacred places in which Filipinos would worship. So walang simbahan pa noon, wala pang simbahan, no, yung structure ha, wala pang mga places of worship noon. The word simbahan means a place to worship which is constructed at a large house of the chief. So, ang simbahan nila noon ay hindi talaga separate doon sa bahay nung datu. Kundi ang simbahan tinatawag nila ay yung bahay nung datu mismo, okay? Kung saan nag-gather o nagsasama-sama ang mga tao para magbunyi, para magdiwang. Okay? Pandot or worship ang tawag nila doon sa celebration ng festival. They beat large and small drums successively during the feast, which usually lasted 4 days. So this is how, okay, di ba? Kaya nga nauso tayo dun sa, maliban sa pista mismo, meron pang bispera, meron pang araw mismo ng pista, meron pang afternoon date ng pista, meron pang handaan dyan, and others, sunod-sunod yan. Okay, so this is our culture as presented by Plasencia. Kaya nga, pati wedding, halos 3 days or 1 week lang din, di ba? Kasi meron pang sayawan, meron pang ganito, and others. Okay, that's how we celebrate as Filipinos during the early times. Now, we proceed to yung mga paniniwala nila. Meron siya tinatawag na nag-aanitos for worship. Anito is soul or spirit of ancestors. Okay? Ito, may nakita ko sa internet, okay, na ito yung mga anito, Tagalog and Pampanga regions. Okay, this is Southern Tagalog areas. Mga diwata na inatasan ni Bathala na mamuhay kasama ang mga mortal. Okay? So ito yung mga anito. Ito yung mga nag-aanito. Okay, yung mga kung nag-aanito, ito yung mga tao na tumatawag ng mga kaluluwa ng mga ancestors nang sa ganon ay mapagaling ang isang may sakit, nang sa ganon ay mabigyang lunas ang isang problema sa katawan ng tao na hindi magamot ng kahit anumang herbal plant. Okay, ito yung mga nag-aanitos. In other terms, they are called as herbolarios. Okay, herbolarios. Okay, in Itawes, okay, there's a certain document in UST Library describing about the nag-aanitos among the Itawes culture and Ibanag culture. At ito ay tinatawag natin na anitera. Okay, the anitera, ang anitera, ito yung mga naggagamot. Okay, naggagamot dun sa may mga sakit. Tumatawag ng mga espiritu ng sa ganun makatulong para gamutin yung problema sa katawan ng isang tao. Anitera ang tawag, nag-aanitos, yung term, or these are the past doctors that we believe now. Meron din tayong tinatawag na herbolarios. These are all examples of nag-aanitos o mga anitos. Ito, nakita ko meron silang tinatawag na Lakambini, God of Purity. Lakanbakod, Lord of Fences. Lakanbakod, Lord of Fences. Lakandanum, okay, ruler of the waters. Remember, okay, so na-realize ko, no? The term water yan, the ruler of the water, danum. Okay? In Itawes, we call water as danum. Tama? So, maaring dito galing yung salitang water in Itawes sa danum. Okay, Lakandanum is the ruler of the waters. Okay, Lakambini is the God of purity. Kaya mga dalaga tinatawag natin bini-bini. Okay, bini-bini marikit. Okay, sorry. Lakambini or bini-bini, God of purity. Lakanbakod, bakod is Lord of Fences. Ito yung mga tinatawag daw noon, okay, kapag may mga sakit na natin. Don't you know that kung bakit sa mga Itawes o even sa Ibanag o dito sa Cagayan, sabihin natin Isabela, malalim ko na experience ito. Halimbawa yung bata, gabi nang umuwi, no? Pag gabi nang umuwi yung bata, meron tayong tinatawag sa Itawes o yung mga Itawes diyan. Meron tayong parang sinasabi, okay, o spell na sinasabi habang pauwi tayo sa ating tahanan kapag maggagabi na, magkasisilin na. Yung tinatawag natin na moon, di ba? May tatara moon, for example, si Prince, halimbawa, o kaya si Fiorina, halimbawa, uuwi na ng gabi, pagbata sila, no? Tapos yung magulang, usually sinasabi nila moon Fiorina, yin. Lubet Fiorina, yin. Okay? We do that rhyme, we do that spell. Okay, nang sa ganun daw ay walang masamang espiritu na sasama dun sa bata, nang sa ganun hindi magkasakit yung bata. Walang masamang espiritu na sasama sa bata pag gabi na, at nang sa ganun ay hindi magkakasakit yung bata. That's why, malalala din yun noon na pag gabi, sinasabi sa atin, takpan mo ang ulo mo. Pag lumalabas ka ng gabi, no, takpan mo yung bunbunan mo. Because during that time, naniniwala din sila ang paniniwala doon ay kailan takpan mo yung bunbunan mo kasi daw may mga bad spirits during sakit-silin o during that time to capture your soul. Okay, to capture your soul. And yung soul daw natin makikita dito sa bunbunan natin. At kapag hindi nakatakpan yung bunbunan natin, madaling makuha yung nasabing kaluluwa, at kung nakuha yung kaluluwa natin, yung spirit natin, magkakasakit tayo. At that time, kailangan natin magtawag ng mga mag-aanitos, ng mga aniteras, ng mga herbolarios. Okay, so that's the belief then. Okay? Now, for CB, it's a temporary shed made of each side of the chief's house for the assembled people. Okay? Yung CB, ito yung parang shed. So, kung saan nagagada, nag-meeting yung mga tao. Ito yung tatawag natin na waiting shed. Okay, ngayon, ito yung tatawag natin na pook diwang. Okay, o kaya yung area kung saan kayo nag-meeting. Now, early Tagalogs believed in Bathala also, one of their many idols whom they especially worship. So ito yung God nila noon. Okay? Bathala, aka also known as Apa, may kapal sa lahat. Siya ang tagapaglikha ng mundo at tagapagsubaybay ng sangkatauhan. Istrikto siya sa kanyang mga batas, ngunit galante sa mga sumusunod sa kanya. Dito nanggaling yung salitang bahala na ng mga Pilipino. When we say bahala na, we are entrusting everything to God. We are entrusting everything to Bathala because we have faith, we have deep trust of Him. Okay? Pero ngayon, ang bahala na culture ay nagiging masama ng ibig sabihin. Kasi parang gusto ko lang bahala na lang natin mga bagay-bagay at wala tayong ginagawa para matulungan ang ating mga sarili. Pero originally, it is a good word, it's a good word, a sign of our trust and faith to God, to Bathala. Early Tagalogs worship the sun, the moon, and some, even the stars of particular dead man, with special capabilities that both bravely or protected them in their time of need. Okay? So yan. Yan tinatawag ng mga Bathala noon. Now, aside from that, they also respect the sun. Almost universally respected and honored because of its beauty. Okay? So, natutuwa sila, okay, sa araw. They also praise the moon. They also praise the stars. Tinatawag nilang tala. Okay, the morning star. Okay? They also praise the 7 little goats under the Pleiades, star cluster, constellation. Balatik, the greater bear constellation. They praise also that. Mapolon, the change of season, pagbabago ng klima and others. Okay? Ng weather. Ito. They have a god called Mayari, goddess of the moon. Ito yung demigod, tatlong anak ni Bathala sa isang mortal. Nag-asawa daw itong si Bathala na isang mortal at nagkaroon daw ng anak. Okay? At ito yung tatlong anak ni Bathala, si mortal niyang asawa. Ito ay si Mayari, goddess of the moon. Ito si Hanan, goddess of the morning. Ito si Tala, goddess of the stars. Okay, imagine, today we have goddesses. Okay. Now, aside from that, okay, they have likha. Likha ang tawag nila sa mga idols, images with different shapes. Dito ni-integrate ng mga pari para makuha niya attention ng mga Pilipino na mag-convert ng Christianity. Okay, ginawa nila instead of praising their idols or their likha, ang ginawa nila ay pinagawan sila ng mga likaw o mga itsura ng mga santo na sa ganito ang kanilang mga idolo. So na-integrate yung kultura natin sa ating relihiyon bilang mga Katoliko. They also believe in Dian Masalanta, an idol, patron of lovers and generation. Ito si Dian Masalanta. Itong visual imagery of Dian Masalanta, goddess of lovers, childbirth and peace. Childbirth is generation and peace. Siya daw ang pinakamabait at papagmahal sa mga Diyos ng langit. Pinarusahan si Dian Masalanta nang umibig siya sa isang mortal. Kaya ipinatapon siya sa mundo ng mga tao, isang parusa na labis niyang kinasaya dahil makakasama niya ang kanyang mahal. Okay, si Dian Masalanta. Eh, kakatumbas niya ito si Venus ng Greek mythology o si Neptune ng Roman mythology. Now, aside from that, they also believe in Lakapati and Ibianale. They are idols also, mga likha din, patrons of cultivated lands and husbandry. Pag sabing husbandry, we are referring to labor and good deeds. Okay? So ito si Lakapati, hermaphrodite goddess of fertility and agriculture. You know what a hermaphrodite is? Ang hermaphrodite, ito yung sitwasyon na isang tao, isang individual ay merong dalawang ari. Kaya meron siyang aring pang babae, meron siyang aring pang lalaki. Okay, that's hermaphrodite. It's a mix of Hermes, the god messenger, and Aphrodite, the god of beauty, in Greek mythology. Kilala sila Lakapati, okay, bilang pinakamabait na diwata ng mga Tagalog. Tuwing panahon ng ani, tinataas niya sa langit ang kanilang mga anak at nagdadasal. Lakapati, pakanin mo, yaring alipin mo, wag mong gutumin, na maglaon ay naging asawa siya ni Mapulon matapos ang maraming taon ng panliligaw. Tingnan natin ito kung sino si Mapulon. Ang mga mga Tagalog daw noon, kapag nagkakaanak sila, nagdadasal sila kay Lakapati. At ito daw ang kanilang sinasabi. Lakapati, pakanin mo, yaring alipin mo, wag mong gutumin. Because she's the goddess of fertility and agriculture. Si Janale naman nagsisira sa mga katulong ni Bathala na nakatira sa kalangitan. Dito na pangasawa niya ang isa pang Diyos na si Dumangan. Later we will look who Dumangan. So meaning to say, pre-colonial Tagalogs already believe in God, believe in heaven, langit. O kaya niwala na sila noon dyan. Now other gods, okay na nakita ko as a project of a group about Filipino mythology. But this is not part of the book of this is not part of the book of Plasencia. Okay, we have Dumangan, okay, God of good harvest. Okay, si Dumangan daw ang God of good harvest. Sa kultura ng Zambales, ito yung asawa ni sino yung asawa ni napangasawa ni Janale ay si Dumangan. Okay? Sa kultura ng Zambales, si Dumangan daw ang dahilan na magandang ani ng bigas. Asawa siya ni Janale at pareho silang nakatira sa kalangitan. Then they also believe in Aring Sinukuan. Okay, Aring Sinukuan, son of God of war and death. Ang katumbas niya is who is the God of war in Greek mythology, si Ares. Okay? And God of death in Greek mythology is si Poseidon. Diba? Si Poseidon ba? Poseidon? So, God of si Poseidon pala, no? Sino ang God of death? I forgot. Okay? So, Aring Sinukuan ang tawag. Naninirahan sa Mount Arayat, Pampangayan. Siya umano ang nagturo sa mga sinuunang kapampangan ng metallurgiya. Okay, metallurgy, pangangahoy, paggamit ng bakal. Okay, metallurgy. Pangangahoy at pagpapalay. Now, we also have other gods, Mapulon, God of seasons. Asawa nila Kapati. Okay, ito yung pangasawa nila Kapati. Itinuturing siyang isa sa pinakamabait na diwata. Kilala rin bilang diwata ng kalusugan. Minamanipula niya ang panahon upang mapatubo ng halamang gamot para maibigay sa mga may sakit. Okay? We also have Libulan, God of the moon, patron God of homosexuality. Okay? So meron na palang patron ng mga homosexuals ng mga panahon na iyon. Okay, ito ay si Libulan, God of the moon. Ayon sa ibang kwento, na akit ng kagandahan ng buwan si Sidapa, Diyos ng kamatayan. Nililigawan niya ito ng Diyos ng kamatayan si Hades, no, sa Greek mythology. Niligawan niya ito nang hindi iniisip na pareho ang kanilang kasarian. Sinasabing hanggang ngayon ay magkasama pa rin sila at masayang naninirahan sa Mount Madja at sa Panay. Okay, so then si Libunan. Napangasawa niya itong si Dapa na parehas silang lalaki. Okay, God of homosexuality. Other gods, okay, si Anagolay, Goddess of Lost Things, Tagalog region. Ipinangalan sa kanya ang isang asteroid matapos itong irekomenda ng isang Filipinong estudyante at manalo sa libo-libong pangalan na ipinasa ng 85 bansa sa Space Generation Advisory Council. So ito ang Anagolay, pinangalan sa isang asteroid. Okay? Sa Anagolay, Goddess of Lost Things. We also have Mangetchay, okay, Great Elder, sa Pampangan Region, Pampanga. Kilala bilang tagahabi, sinasabi ang kalangitan, ang kanyang obra maestra, at ang liwanag ng mga bituin ay sanhi ng maliliit na butas sa kanyang habi. Okay, so naghabi daw siya, yung mga butas daw sa habi, siya daw naghabi ng buong kalangitan. Okay, at yung mga butas ng kanyang mga habi, ito daw yung bubo ng constellation. Okay, yun ang kanilang paniniwala, yung mga Mangetchay. We also have Apong Malyari, Goddess of the Moon, ruler of the 8 rivers. Mortal na kaaway na rin sinukuan, siya ang tagapagbantay ng Mount Pinatubo. And later on, we will discuss about Satan. Ito yung God of the lower world, evil. Parang si Lucifer. Paniniwala ng mga Tagalog. Pinuno ng kasamaan. Ang sinumang impyerno, inaakit niya ang mga mortal na gumawa ng masama sa tulong ng kanyang 4 na alagad. So later, we will discuss who are these 4 servants of Satan or God of the lower world. Dito papasok yung, tapos ito pa, ang mga Tagalog, naniniwala sila sa, parang they respect the crocodiles o yung tatawag natin buhaya. Crocodiles were respected by the Tagalogs due to their fear of being harmed by them. Takot ang mga Tagalogs dito noon. They offered a portion of what they carried in their boats to them. Okay? Sa mga buhaya. Marami pang buhaya noon at takot ang mga tao dito noon. Mga early Tagalogs is kumakain daw ng tao at the same time, powerful siya. Kaya early Tagalogs respect the buhayas. Okay? We also respect the buhayas now. Who are the buhayas now? Mga corrupt officials. Okay? We also respect them, no? Okay? We are not learning. We keep paying our taxes to these people who are corrupt. Ito yung mga buhaya, mga matatakaw sa lipunan. Sabi ng mga makabagong paniniwalang mga Pilipino. Makabagong paniniwalang Pilipino. Okay? So, Plasencia also made mention of the 12 priests of the devil. Ito yung mga babaylan. Actually, these are the babaylan of 12 priests of the devil according to him. Okay, at ito, I referred this from aswangproject.com. Okay, ito daw yung labing dalawang pari ng mga demonyo, sabi ni Plasencia. Si Catalonan, Manggagaway, Mansiya Salat, Mangkokolam, Hokloban, Silagan, Magtatanggal, Oswang, Manggagayoma, Sonat, Pangatahodyan, at Bayogin. Okay, tingnan natin isa-isa ang mga ito. Ito yung tatawag natin mga alagad ni Satan based from the Aswang Project. Okay, yung apat. At yung apat na ito, that is number 3 dapat. Yung apat na ito, kasama sa yung apat na ito, kasama doon sa 12 spirits of the devil according to Plasencia. Okay, we have Manggagaway, ito. We have Mansisilat o Mansiya Salat. We have Mangkukulam o Mangkokolam. We have Hukluban. Ano mga ito? Ang Manggagaway ay ang mga healer or healer. They pretend to heal the sick in order to deceive others. Kaya niyang pahabain o pakitliin ang iyong buhay gamit ng kanyang mahiwagang baton. Okay, meron ba siyang mahiwagang baton? Yung parang one. Okay? Okay? So, pwede niyang pahabain o pakitliin ang iyong buhay. We also have the Mansiya Salat or Mansisilat. They can cast remedies to couples for them to abandon one another. Okay? Para maiwanan nila ang isa't isa. Paghiwalayin niya, mga homewrecker. Okay, si Mansiya Salat ay mga homewrecker. Madalas na nagpapanggap bilang matatandang manlilimos upang makapasok sa mga bahay na makapanira ng mga relasyon ng mag-asawa. So si Mansisilat o Mansisalat. Okay? Sa panahon ngayon, siguro ito yung ito siguro sinasabi nilang mga kabit, okay, ng mga kapanahon na iyon, yung wala silang may explain kung bakit mga naninira ng tahanan dahil inaengganyo nilang isa para samahan sila, okay, and others. Ito yung mga kabit sa makabagong panahon. Okay, mga mansisilat, mga homewrecker. Okay? Mga homewrecker. O ito yung yung sa may yung kanim na utos. Ito si Georgia, mga mansisilat. Okay? Number 4 is we have Mangkokolam. Can emit fire from himself which cannot be extinguished. The most powerful witch. Sinisilaban ng apoy ang bahay ng kanyang biktima daw. Kapag mabilis na napula ang apoy, mabilis din siyang mamamatay. Okay? So ito siguro yung ito yung description ni Plasencia ng mga mangkukulam. And number 4 is Hokloban. Much more powerful than a Manggagaway in which they can kill anyone without the use of any medicine. They can also heal those who are ill. Shapeshifter. Kayang manakit ng kahit na sino sa mamamagitan lamang ng salita. Okay, merong spell. Ito yung gumagamit ng spell ko si Hukluban. So these are the first 4 spirits of the devil according to Plasencia. Others are the following. We also have Catalonan. So Catalonan, priest from a people of rank, officiates the offering sacrifice for a feast and the food to be eaten being offered to the devil. Okay, pag nag-offer ka nag-offer ka ng sacrifice, tawagan mo itong si Catalonan, siya ang gagawa noon. Okay? Then we also have Silagan. This is an example of Silagan, itong picture nito. Silagan, they would tear out and eat the liver of those who they saw were wearing white. So lahat ng nagsusuot ng puti. Okay? Ano yan? Papatayin, kakainin ang liver. Okay? Kakainin ni Silagan ang kanilang mga liver. Okay? Next is we have magtatanggal. Okay, ito manananggal ang bagong term. Magtatanggal, yan. They would go out at night without their heads and put it back into their bodies before the sunrise. Okay? Ito may bawang. O, yan, nilagyan mo ng bawang daw para mamatay siya. Then we also have Oswang or Aswang. Tribesmen reported that they saw the Oswang who can fly and murdered a man and ate his flesh. Hanggang ngayon, paniniwala pa rin yan ng mga Pilipino. We also have the Manggagayoma. They would seduce their partners with charms and other accessories so they can deceive them. And you know, ano ang capital, Gayuma capital ng Pilipinas? You know, what is the Gayuma capital of the Philippines? The Gayuma capital of the Philippines is Siquijor. Okay. When I visited Siquijor, halos maraming nagtitinda ng Gayuma na nakalagay sa maliliit na bote. Okay? Ewan ko, naniniwala naman sila totoo daw na kapag binigay mo daw yun o pinainom mo sa iyong gusto, ay may in love daw siya sa iyo. Okay, manggagayuma. Okay? Para sa akin, ang pinaka-epektibong gayuma ay yung kabaitan ng tao. Kapag mabait ka, ay, certainly maraming magmamahal sa iyo. Okay? Hindi na pinaka-epektibong gayuma. Pero yung gayuma na ito, mga halaman. Okay, mga halaman daw itong mga ito. Manggagayuma. Number 10, we have sonat. This devil helps people to die. Siguro ito yung yung mga nagsusuicide. Ito explanation siguro nila merong sonat. Itong demonyo na itong kumukuha, yung mga nagpapakamatay, yung kinikita ng sarili, yung mga may mga depression, may mga tendency to kill themselves. Ito siguro yung paniniwala nila na ito yung demonyo na sumanib sa kanila, sabi ng mga early Tagalogs. Itong si sonat. Okay? And number 11, we have pangatag Hochan. Okay? With pangatag Hochan, they can predict the future. Ito yung mga manghuhula. O, ito yung mga nasa Quiapo. Okay? Mga nanghuhula sa kung anong mangyayari sa kinabukasan mo. Okay? Pangatag Hochan. And last is interesting. Last is Bayogin. Okay? Dito nang galing yung salitang bayot sa Visayan or bakla. Okay? Bayot or bakla. Okay? These are men who are in nature of a woman. Ito, halimbawa ng larawan ng isang bayogin. Siguro hindi nila ma-explain kung bakit may mga ganito. Kasi sa mga pari noon, okay, during the Spanish time, naniniwala sila mga nasanaliban ng demonyo, itong mga lalaki na babae gumalaw, mga lalaki na mga binabae, yun ang term nila noon. O kasi mga immoral, sabi ng mga pari, mga panahon na yun ng mga bakla. Kaya siguro hindi nila ma-explain. Kaya ito sabi ng mga Tagalogs noon, na merong demonyo, sabi ni Plasencia, na sumasanib doon sa mga katawan ng mga lalaki, kaya nagiging babae sila, nagiging aktong babae. Ito yung mga tinatawag nila mga bayogin, kung saan galing yung term sa Bisaya na bayot or bakla. Okay, so noon, meron ng mga homosexuals. Yun nga lang, ito lang yung mga terms na ginagamit nila. Okay? Okay, so before we continue, any reaction as regards the first part of the second part of our discussion? Okay, may mga tanong po ba? Any questions? Wala ko ng tubig. Okay, class, any question as regards to the 12 fruits of the devil according to Plasencia? May mga tanong kayo? O nakarelate yung mga iba? May tanong? O, walang sumasagot na. Nandiyan pa ba kayo mga kapatid? Relation to... any reaction as regard the 12 fruits of the devil according to Plasencia? May tanong kayo. So, may kasi nung panahon na iyon, because people maybe cannot explain why are these things happening, why these things are happening. That's why they associate it to this, they make it of a term to explain things out because they cannot explain it. Okay, so in-associate na lang nila sa mga bagay-bagay na ito. Siguro ito yung hindi rin nandiyan ni Plasencia. But we have to understand the context of Plasencia. That Plasencia is it's a Catholic priest. Plasencia is a Christian. Plasencia has a religion. At anything that debates what the belief of the Christian belief would mean evil for Plasencia. Siguro yun yung konteksto na unawain natin kay Plasencia. Pero ang maganda dito ay yung mga panahon na iyan pala ay meron ng pagpapaliwanag. So, for example, dun sa mga homosexuals, may pagpapaliwanag na doon sa mga homewreckers, yung mga kabit, may pagpapaliwanag na doon sa mga kinikita lang sarili, mga suicide. Okay, may mapaniniwala na sa mga ganito dati. Okay?
Adobos ganyan. Tagol,
yes.
Gulaman.
Fast.
Okay, any question, any sharing that you would like to share? Any insight that you would like to share, should I say? We listen to Gideon. Gideon. Hi, Gideon. Hello, Gideon. Gideon,
Sir,
any
sir,
reaction
morning.
with regards,
Ay, good afternoon.
yeah, good morning. Good morning pa lang.
Wala po, sir.
Wala pang 12. Gideon, may we see your face, Gideon, please. Gideon, please share us your insight. Please share us your thing about the 12 priests of the devil.
Sir?
Any question or any sharing as regards as regards the 12 priests of the devil as mentioned by Plasencia in his account?
Sir, wala po.
Wala. Okay. Ano sa tingin mo ang Gideon? Ikaw ba sa ngayon naniniwala ka ba na dun sa sinasabi nila na sinasabi ni Plasencia na about doon sa payogin?
Yes, sir.
About sa payogin. Okay. The good thing is, di ba, Gideon? The good thing about
Sir,
the account of yes, Gideon. Anything?
Sir, nakikinig po.
Wala. So, the good thing about that of Plasencia, Gideon, is that parang maganda pinakita niya o isinulat niya yung observation niya yung paniniwala ng mga Tagalog at inuunawaan natin na di ba minsan nagtatanong tayo, may mga ano kaya, may mga noong unang panahon ba meron bang mga kabit din na matatawag? Noong unang panahon ba meron din baklang matatawag? Noong unang panahon ba meron bang mga suicide din na nagaganap? And now we are learning that indeed these things are also happening in the early times. Only that the term, okay, we don't know the name, we don't know how to explain during those times. Ngayon, it's thank you to Plasencia because he brought it out, should I say, that our early Tagalog ancestors do have a term to explain, do have an account to explain about the occurrences of these things. Okay? But of course, ngayon, hindi na masama na parang dati-dati kasi pag nag-suicide ang tao, di ba, sabi natin, it's the work of the devil. Kaya hindi siya pinapasok sa simbahan. Di ba? Pero ngayon, naniniwala tayo na ang mga nagpapakamatay ay wala sa tamang katinuan nung panahon na kinitil nila ang kanilang mga sarili. Kaya ngayon, pwede na silang i-bless sa simbahan, pwede na silang ilagay sa simbahan, dahil nagbago na rin yung ating paniniwala tungkol dito. Okay? Ngayon, isa na yung about sa homosexual, sa LGBTQIA+. Okay, ngayon, in-explain pala noon, meron silang tinatawag ng bayogin because they cannot explain it. Sinasabi na lang ng mga pari noon, ng mga early priests noon, ng mga panahon na yun, during the Spanish time, na may demonyo sa loob ng kanilang katawan. Hindi nga nila ma-explain. Yun ang tindihin natin. Wag nating questionin si Plasencia, but we have to understand the context of Plasencia na ganito paniniwala niya dahil Katoliko siya. Ganito paniniwala niya kasi taliwas siya doon sa practices ng mga Tagalog at taliwas yung practices ng mga Tagalog doon sa paniniwala niya. Okay, we have to understand that. Kasi tawag natin contextual analysis. Intindihin natin pinanggagalingan ng tao ng sulat na siguro maintindihan natin kung bakit nasulat niya yung nasabing bagay. Okay? Salamat, Gideon, for responding. Okay? Okay. Any other reaction as regards the 12 priests of the devil? We listen to Alaniza.
Sir, yes.
Any questions? Wala na. Okay. Now, class, kasi magte-12 na. Allow me to announce that the prelim exam will already be next week. And the coverage of our prelim exam is up to that of the four primary sources which you have summarized. Okay, hanggang doon. So we are now trying to finish the second source, which is primary, which is customs of the Tagalog. Okay, now. Pero meron pang confused slides, i-continue natin next meeting. Please remember, please pakibasa yung dalawa pa kasi baka hindi natin ma-discuss prior the prelim exam. Okay, so pakibasa na sa module sa ating LMS yung dalawang account, but we will still discuss it during the midterms. Okay, we will continue next week the discussion about customs of the Tagalog, and we will try to finish also that of the third account, that of Kartilya ng Katipunan. No, subukan natin tapusin next week, and that is Tuesday because the exam will be Wednesday up to Friday. This week, wala kayong assessment muna. Okay? This week wala muna kayong assessment, but please make use of your extra time to read the other two primary sources, because we might not be able to finish discussing these two primary sources, which would be part of the prelim examination. Okay. So, meron pa rin kayong last quiz sa klase. Ang last quiz ninyo will be on Tuesday about customs and about customs, about the four. Ay, ilagay na natin about the four primary sources. Okay, may quiz kayo on Tuesday about it. Okay? So, basahin na ninyo earlier yung doon kay Emilio Jacinto at saka kay Emilio Aguinaldo. Okay, kasi kasama siya sa quiz on Tuesday. That will be our last quiz prior to the prelim exam. Klaro ba?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Yes,
Hindi,
sir.
pasensya na kayo, hindi natin naabutan na, hindi natin kayang mag-discuss bago mag-prelim exam yung dalawang accounts. But please do advance
Yes, sir.
link, and our last quiz will be on Tuesday next week. So for this week, wala muna kayong activity. Okay ba yon?
Opo.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for
Thank you, sir.
attending
Yes, sir.
us. We will again continue our discussion next meeting.
Yes,
That will
sir.
be Tuesday next week. So enjoy your day, and please help yourself in finishing all your assessment tasks in the different subjects you're enrolled in this semester. Okay? So please prepare well for the prelim examination. Puro multiple choice naman ang prelim exam ninyo. Okay? So thank you for attending this session. Goodbye, class.
Thank you, sir.
Goodbye, sir.
Bye,
Thank you,
sir.
sir.
Bye, sir.
Bye, sir. Thank you po.
Bye.
Bye, sir. Thank you po, sir.
Okay, Micah.
Goodbye, sir. Thank you po. Stay safe.
Bye-bye, Terry.
Bye, sir. Thank
Goodbye,
you po.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye, Angel.
Bye, sir.
Thank you,
Bye,
sir.
sir.
Thank you po, sir.
And of course, Daniel.
Bye, sir.
Be safe, sir.
Okay, bye-bye. Christine.